being overconfident? Am I becoming complacent about complacency?
I think you are.
Oh, he's not the Messiah. He's just a very naughty boy.
Yeah, I've got big ears.
Brian just wanted to see anyone now. Piss off.
That's the one. Because you literally complete me. And we complete each other.
You've obviously encountered discrimination in your own life by virtue of being Australian.
Hey, Manuel Kant was a real pissant. He was very rarely stable.
I don't want to get too gushy, but I might just be saying you complete me, Dean. PNG now stands for Pritchard and Good.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane!
did I do that?
You're insane!
Well, it's Wednesday, November 4th. We survived. I mean, relatively speaking, we're still here. We're still here, and we're here to tell the story. And it is appropriate because it is National Stress Awareness Day. I kid you not. It is National Stress Awareness Day, the day after the election. And Joey says, maybe the most needed guest ever. Yes, he's referring to my guest, Lodro Rinzler, who is going to teach me today how to meditate, introduce me to meditation. So introduce you as well if you don't know, if you haven't meditated. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to meet him and get to know him with you guys out there as well. Lodro is a Buddhist meditation teacher. He has his own studio. He is a multiple author, and he's changed many people's lives. I kid you not. So yesterday we had Will Haskell, who was campaigning. More about him soon, and find out how his election went. Tomorrow, my good friend Wesley Faulkner is coming in, and finally, Moshe Engelberg will end the week off by teaching us about the power of love, Love, the greatest four-letter word in the world. So a bunch of previous guests who are celebrating birthdays today. Mr. Scott McCain himself, who goes live at 3 p.m., John Battelle, this was his Super Bowl, right? He just started The Recount, which is a platform that really takes the best of, or takes essentially bite-sized video content with a political flair and flavor and focus. So I'm sure a lot of people are getting their intelligence, their unbiased intelligence from Mr. John Battelle. And then also, of course, on LinkedIn, want to just say happy birthday to all of my contacts. Well, obviously the election was yesterday, and a big part of the election we knew was going to be absentee ballots, right? Mail-in ballots. And we knew that that already our 100 million total was 72% of 2016's total, and it's coming down right now to mail-in ballots. So it's possible that when all the votes are counted, Pennsylvania, even though it doesn't look it this way, could go blue. At the moment, it is decidedly red, and it's all I know is that we're in the second or third inning of a 9-inning, maybe an extra inning game. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure that you are mentally prepared for the journey. And the good news, of course, in the election, I wouldn't know because I've never tried them, but Oregon is the first state in the US that has legalized the use of psychedelic mushrooms. So here's the thing. I was busy saying, oh, I'm going to leave the country if Trump wins and blah, blah, blah. I'm not leaving the country. I'm just going to go and live in Oregon. It's fantastic, right? The home of Nike. Got to move. Portlandia, let's do it. Let's all go there. Corona TV's new global headquarters will be in Oregon. Why not? Well, now it's time for our seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy today is called the zero-sum game of victory. All things being equal, for every winner, there has to be a loser, which makes me wonder if the entire concept of winning is actually flawed. Yesterday on the show, you heard a profoundly philosophical take on winning from a 24-year-old state senator who I'm pleased to say won his re-election bid. Congratulations, Will. The rest of us went to sleep last night feeling either like a winner or a loser, and that feeling was completely reversed this morning, and who knows what the final outcome will be. Isn't it remarkable how we can go from a position of hubris, arrogance, and maybe even overconfidence to one of feeling hopeless, deflated, and defeated in the REM blink of an eye? As a parent, what would you like less? For your child to be bullied, or if your child was in fact the bully? I was appalled to find out that an actual congressman, Madison Cawthorn, victorious in his House campaign in North Carolina last night, tweeted this: "Cry more, lib." Hat tip to friend of the show and recovering COVID-19 patient Scott Monty for alerting me to this. I'm not joking when I tell you the very tweets below on his profile said, "Honor matters and values matter." He could learn a thing or two from Will Haskell, that's for sure. Soon you'll learn from the teachings of both Buddha and my guest, Lodro Rinzler. But if you'll permit me, I'd like to share 3 thoughts with you today. Number 1, as the saying goes, if there's anything worse than a sore loser, it's a sore winner. But why be sore at all? Why not be as humble in victory as you are humbled in defeat? Arguably even more. Number 2, remember exactly how you felt when you were on the wrong end of the outcome in this election. Don't forget that pain. And then remember how you felt when the balance of power swung in your favor. Now, consider your opponent's pain. I guess they call that empathy. And finally, number 3, win or lose, there's always something bigger than either side that actually unites both of them. Is it possible to be defeated in victory? Is it possible to find joy in defeat? As Van Jones said on CNN, the fact that it's this close hurts. Regardless of whether you are a winner or a loser in this election, as the saying goes, pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. So choose wisely, my friends. Well, someone who I'm sure has a perspective on winning and losing and pain and suffering is my guest today, Lodro Rinzler. Lodro Rinzler is a meditation teacher and the author of 6 meditation books. He's also the co-founder of Mindful Meditation Studios in New York City. His books, Walk Like a Buddha and The Buddha Walks into the Office and The Buddha Walks into a Bar, have all received Independent Publisher Book Awards. Lodro has taught meditation for 19 years in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition and travels frequently for his books, having spoken across the world at conferences, universities, and businesses as diverse as Google, Harvard University, and the White House. Named one of the 50 innovators shaping the future of wellness by Sonoma, Rinzler's work has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, Good Morning America, CBS, and NBC. And now, of course, he comes to Corona TV. Please join me. I'm tongue-tied. I'm so excited in welcoming to the show. Welcome, Lodro.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that very generous introduction. And I'm also tongue-tied, clearly also excited to be here with you.
I think maybe we might have had a long night. Or how was your sleep last night?
My sleep itself was fine. I think that is, one of the things that, as you were talking about before, it's almost easier to say, oh, I get to be the clear winner, I get to be the clear loser, I don't have to consider anyone else. It's harder for so many people to rest with uncertainty. And I saw something from The Onion of all places this morning that said something along the lines of, authoritarian dictator welcomed if the U.S. population can just not have to do 10 more minutes of waiting. And it's sort of like the only thing that we dislike more than losing is having to be in uncertainty. So I think it's such an interesting thing right now where we're all sort of hanging out and not knowing, which is, as you talked about earlier, sort of my jam. Like that's where I live a lot of the time, just the sense of not knowing. So to answer your question more directly, I was able to set it aside and say, okay, time for sleep. But I think even with that, I don't know about you, but I certainly am getting, people texting, calling. Right now there's a call. It's just, there's always something in someone saying, oh, but have you seen this thing? And it's very easy for us to fall into deep stress as a result of that. Even if we ourselves are not actively trying to seek out stress, lo and behold, it might find us. And I think it's a great day that we're actually being able to spend some time together and talk about how to care for yourself in the midst of that.
I like this idea of have you seen this thing, right? It's almost like the squirrel effect from the movie Up, is that we get very distracted, I suppose, and taken off our course or our path, whatever that path should be, right?
It's exactly it. It's just very easy for us to, we like to think that, particularly as adults, that we're actually focused and we have our act together. But then someone says, can you look over there? And you just say, wait, what's going on over there? What should I be looking over there? What's the, does this thing matter? Does this article matter? And it's very easy to get lost in all of that and to lose our sense of grounding.
Well, I've got to tell you, Richie Glassberg is here and he says, Lodro rocks. Richie is the reason why you're here today. He was on my show. It was one of my favorite episodes of the show because his energy, his enthusiasm, his passion, it is beyond infectious. And he told me how, I think your book, what's it? A Buddha walks into the bar. He said it changed his life, and how meditation has changed his life, and how you have changed his life. And he very kindly introduced me to you, and you very kindly agreed to help me understand or the power of meditation. And we're going to do a session shortly. So I just want to say a little shout out to Richie, who is just a fantastic man, isn't he?
Yeah, a very sweet, kind-hearted individual. It's not hard to introduce meditation to people who are already very open-hearted, right? So, Richie, it's very sweet that you would say such kind words, but, he is sort of made for living with an open heart. And I think the meditation, he always struck me as someone who, really just took to it and was able then to lean into sort of the hard work of a consistent meditation practice. And I think that's one of the interesting things where it's not, I'm a mediocre meditation teacher at best, but when people actually start doing the practice regularly, they're the one who's actually doing the work. They're the one who's showing up for themselves and training in the same way that we might train in a new language or a musical instrument or a fitness regime. It's some sort of if I show up and I do the work, then I see the benefits. I actually learn. Next time I travel, I can actually speak the language more fluently. I actually go from awkwardly holding the instrument to playing simple songs to playing Beethoven. There's lots of growth, but it's not like we all of a sudden go from, okay, I did this 3 days and then now I get to play Beethoven. It's a sense of gradual and subtle accumulation of the benefits. And I think, I'm sort of getting the bad news out first, which is it would be nice if this meditation thing was like a quick fix, you do it once and now you feel good, like a massage. But, people like Richie can really attest that, the more we put into it, the more we actually start to see the transformative effect of meditation. And these days, I grew up meditating and, I've been doing it for most of my life. How old am I now? I'm about to turn 38 and I've been doing it since I was 6. And, it's certainly changed my life and continued to help me as I stumble through 20s and 30s and so on. But the scientific benefits these days, setting aside my subjective stuff for a moment, it's so interesting because these days it feels like every week there's a new research study saying you do a little bit of meditation every day. Lo and behold, you start to see increased gray matter in the hippocampus. You see more activity in the ACC. And what this means for non-neuroscientists like me it actually means that it boosts our immune system, it normalizes our sleep patterns. Speaking of sleep, it boosts our creativity, makes us more productive and efficient. And all of that sort of seems to revolve around this magical term, which is stress reduction, coming into stress awareness. Good thing that we have the sense, maybe not that our stressors go away, that we no longer have to pay taxes or worry about election cycles, but that we handle our stress differently. We have a different relationship to stress. So no surprise if we actually can change our relationship to stress, we'll sleep better. Our body has more room to heal itself because it's not held in tension. We actually feel where there's room for creativity because we're not freaking out all the time. So that's sort of the logic behind it, but it takes a little getting used to, I would suppose.
I just have to warn you that Richie is going to keep you honest today, because he said you are not a mediocre meditation teacher. So he's all we can say is that you're clearly very humble, and I promise you that I will not keep on feeding any richisms into it. But I think we all kind of knew that coming into it. Faith says meditation is awesome. I do it every morning before getting out of bed. So you'll find out a different approach to it. Can meditation be instructed and taught via a daily streaming video show? I'm sure the answer is yes. Before we get into that, there's something kind of interesting, and normally, we do our fun facts on the show, and there are a couple of things that I just found to be quite interesting and borderline hysterical about you, which is, number one, you've read every single X-Men comic since 1992. And number two, you do CrossFit, which you say is quite surprising. By the way, looks like you've been working out. So congratulations on that. But what I find so interesting about it is these two fun facts are maybe they appear to be the opposite of meditation. X-Men with violence and and drama and action. And then CrossFit is also very physical but of course I'm sure that there is some method in the madness, or maybe there's no method and no madness. It just happens to be something you love. So is there a connection or a counterbalance, or it just happens to be, nope, I just pretty much love comic books and keeping fit?
The X-Men, it's interesting, and no shame to anyone who likes the Avengers, but the X-Men were always the outcasts. They were always the people that were treated differently just by the way that they were born. And I think starting as a teenager, I certainly felt that way, and I imagine many teenagers feel that way. But then particularly in light of where our society is now, it's sort of been a long-standing commentary on racism, that they were always like mutants. These people were called mutants, and that they were bad and they were scary, and that society would shun them. And it's ultimately, yes, there's, they go out and fight evil or whatever, but like the whole thing is that they're grappling with their identity, and they're grappling with a system that has been stacked against them. And I think there's actually a lot of lessons, oddly enough, for us in X-Men comics around our situation. And I think, here in the US, things have become so deeply polarized. And, it's so easy for us to villainize other people or to write other people off on all sides of the aisle. I don't necessarily need to, I lean to, get into the weeds of all that. But it's sort of this interesting thing where we start to look at the systems that we take part in, and the ways that we either villainize others, or the ways that we look down on others, or even pity others at times. And instead, they're essentially a team of people who are built around compassion. And so I apologize if that was a long walk to get there, but similarly, CrossFit is a compassionate community where I am. I live in a very small town at this point. I've moved to, I was in New York City for a bazillion years, and now I'm in a small town of 1,100 people, and the gym is about 15 minutes away, and there's all of 3 coaches total. And it's not, particularly with COVID, we have a very small number of people in any given class, and there's some sense of real community and compassion. And I live in an area that is not necessarily liberal. it's actually very mixed. And to be alongside people from all backgrounds and all belief systems, and still feel A, accepted and seen for who I am, and B, to spend time with them and learn more about their perspectives. It feels, oddly enough, even though we're lifting heavy weights and things like that, there's the community thing is the most healing aspect about it.
I think those are fantastic interpretations. You know, what I've been finding from doing this little fun icebreaker with my guests is there's always a reason behind the choice. Sometimes it is the thing itself, and sometimes it's why they chose the thing to share. And in this case, what beautiful lessons about compassion and about acceptance that are so critical to the question, as I said, that I'm now, at least for the next few weeks, I'm going to ask all of my guests the same question for, 4 words. Lodro, how do we heal?
Yeah, I mean, if I had the silver bullet for it, I would offer it. But it's funny, even within certain Buddhist circles, I see meditation teachers saying like, oh, what's the point of deep listening to Republicans? Because they're just going to spit out conspiracy theories at you or whatever. I think I had an idea 4 years ago when Donald Trump was elected president. I thought, gosh, we're all so divided. It's almost like I want to invent a pen pal system where you actually write real letters, or you get on a Zoom call or whatever with someone who believes completely different, voted completely different from you. And you can talk about everything but politics at first. But there's some sense of like humanizing. It's not someone out there who's crazy, or if they knew what I knew, then they would believe what I believe, so they must be dumb. It's like both sides of our political situation here in the US really cling to that belief of like, well, they are, how could they ever think the way that they think without us ever sitting down asking, how do you think? What matters to you? What issues matter to you? In any case, I do think, the shorter answer here, how do we heal? My own personal perspective, and I know very little about these things, is communication.
Right.
And as I was saying before, it's like, if we shut down and say, you people are bad, or I write you off, or I villainize you, then we don't actually allow for healing. We don't allow for restorative justice. We don't allow for any version of understanding. And the Vietnamese Zen master and Nobel Peace Prize recipient Thich Nhat Hanh is fond of saying, understanding is the other name of love. If we can't understand, we can't love. So if we actually want to move to a place of healing and love, we have to start by seeking to understand other people, not convincing them that they're wrong and we're right, but actually understanding where they come from. So I think dialogue and communication is so essential these days. And it's why I'm so glad that you're doing the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And I love, what a great idea, by the way. So practical and so doable, which is the ability to say for the first 10 minutes, or whether it's the PayPal execution, pen pal execution, send money by PayPal. That's how, if you like Corona TV, please send $5 to my PayPal account. That was Freudian. I did not mean that. But the pen pal idea, what's great about it is that forcing people to actually like get to know one another. I mean, who would have thought we would have needed something so contrived, but yet it's very elegant in its ability to execute, because we can all do it. We can all do it. We could do it tomorrow. We could go to one, person on Facebook right now and say, hey, I'd like to try and experiment with you. And do you think that idea works best in writing as opposed to the spoken word?
I personally do, but I'm biased. You invited me on. That I wrote these books and things like that. I feel like this is how I think. It's like I need to get it down on paper. But I'll tell you, I have a group of friends that I grew up with, and there are 9 of us, and we're in touch every single day. And within the 9 of us, I think 3 of us lean liberal. One of us is sort of like libertarian, and the others are Republican. and one even believes QAnon, conspiracies. One of them's anti-vaxxing. Like it's such a interesting thing, but we communicate every day about these things. And it's actually shed so much insight and understanding for me of what other people might be thinking and how they're thinking. And, it would be very easy for me to like raise my fist and be like, screw you guys, this is stupid. Like, I can't believe you think like this. And yet, even just by hanging out, just getting to, we talk about everything in our lives, not just, the political situation and racial systems of our day. But I mean, that's actually a great example. We had a really interesting conversation around race. And it's just because there's actual rapport, actual respect, actual seeking to understand instead of just writing people off.
Glenn Strachan said $5 is cheap. So, all right, so send $10 to me. That's fine too. I'll take it. And Bob said, this is another episode I know I'll watch again. Well, what I thought we would do is let's talk about meditation. And we'll start off with, here is your quote of the day. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. So do you know who said that or who that is attributable to?
I am not sure, actually.
So this one is fairly easy if you think about this.
Is it here's the thing. Is it the Buddha?
It is.
Now, did you go to fakebuddhaquotes.com just to double check? Because I'm not picking on you. Sometimes I will say, "Oh yeah, this is a beautiful quote from the Buddha," and I was like, I just got to double check. And it's a great site, by the way, where they will be like, "Well, the actual way that this was talked about is very nerdy, but it makes for less Instagrammable content, but more traditional." But yes, this is a beautiful idea that is related to Buddhism, that how much of our time do we actually spend actually being present? It's very, very little. It's the fact that we are always thinking, oh my gosh, that thing from the other night, and how are we going to do it, and blah, blah, blah. But what about the future? Oh my gosh, if I don't get this done by Thursday, then it's going to fall apart, and we can just spiral in either direction. Very rarely do we actually rest the mind. And when we rest the mind on something as simple as the breath, the present moment opens up in a very big way, and we're actually able to be relaxed, be calm, and see, like, actually just transform our relationship to stress.
Well, I've just been given an update. My invisible, non-existent earpiece says this has now been attributable to fake Buddha. So we now
okay.
No, I have no idea.
Intent.
It could be real Buddha or fake Buddha. That was just
we'll run it through later.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I loved about it? This idea of living in the present, or being present, I should say. I said that this was a referendum, this election, on whether America was past, present, or future focused, where the implication was one side was past focused and the other was future focused. But I love the idea of being able to celebrate the idea of what is it to be present focused? Mm-hmm. What is it to be present focused in this America, in this American life? Is it being kind to your neighbor? Is it making the most of your day? Is it being able to actualize ourselves? Is it being able to help our neighbor? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, I think so much of the mindfulness aspect here is that we are taming our own mind and working with our own bias to the extent that we are more in touch with reality. And the more we're in touch with reality, the more we naturally start to notice the people around us and see that they are suffering in the same ways that we are. Now, everyone's stories, of course, are quite different. But, if I, for example, have in the past been angry, and I know how painful it is, like if I, the tightness in the body and the repetitive stories that one tells themselves to keep themselves locked in the state of righteousness, all of that. And then I see someone like that. And having worked with my own mind a little bit, I was like, oh, I know how painful that can be. And as a result, I actually have compassion, empathy for them. Not the sense of like, oh, I'm spiritually evolved and I look down on you people down here and, because it's not that at all. It's empathy. It's eye to eye. I know where you've been. I understand it. Again, that word understanding. And as a result, I'm able to connect and be compassionate and ideally be more skillful because, circling back around, I'm actually in touch with reality instead of like lost in my own thinking and fixed opinions and ideas. So the more we're in touch with reality, the better, right?
I think that was the gist and the essence of that soliloquy, which is in 24 hours, we've gone from a mood swing, right? We've gone from victory to defeat or defeat to victory, however you want to look at that. And we forget, we have such short memories, and we forget what despair felt like. And then we're overcome with the euphoria of victory. But as I often say to my kids, one of the things I once said to them is when they were so upset about losing, whether it was even a game on FIFA on the Xbox or a soccer match, is that for every winner there has to be a loser. Mm-hmm. And so as much as you want to win, recognize that comes at the expense of someone. And that's why I was talking about this idea. Don't lose the pain. Keep the pain, harness the pain, focus the pain, but more importantly, empathize through the pain.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I liked what you said a lot. And that sense of like, okay, first of all, yes, we can be empathetic with people who are now in the position that we were in before. And also, I feel like people will have this expectation of, oh, well, if my guy, which have been this year, my guy gets elected, then everything goes back to normal. When in fact, just by the sheer fact that we're sitting here in uncertainty at 2:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the day after Election Day, it's because we are so divided. And that doesn't go away overnight. So the only, similar to what we're talking about with meditation, the only way toward healing in my mind for a nation is for people to begin the long and arduous conversation of talking to people that they don't agree with.
Right, and actually going out of your way, I would say, to find those people and be able to navigate. Do you have any tips for how to do that? What's one way to actually go about doing that?
Yeah, I think these people are closer than we think. My neighbor, for example, is a big QAnon supporter, and I'm getting to know her better. And it's not like I'm going to go over there and say, tell me why you believe in this theory or any. I'm just getting to know her. And because she's my neighbor. And it would be so easy for me to say, well, I have lots of neighbors. I do not need to know Caroline, right? It's just so easy to say, well, I don't need to exert myself in this way. But it's like we have that uncle, that cousin, that person who lives over there that we went to college with, whatever. We have lots of people that we know. And it's not like we've got to go, put up something at the local supermarket and say, any people from the opposite, belief systems from me, anyone who's radically blank because I'm radically this. It's just, they're in our backyards. They're in our families. They're people that we, maybe have been skipping over their Facebook posts because we don't like what they're saying. And, we went to school with them. We even talked to them in 5 years. Why not talk to them? Why not reach out and just catch up? Again, it's not comfortable. And this, when I was making quoting the Onion earlier of how we would rather, be authoritarian regimes than actually wait and be in uncertainty. We hate discomfort. This is, by the way, since we are talking about meditation, like the number one obstacle to starting a meditation practice, that it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes we're sitting there and we're like, wow, I have a lot of thoughts. That doesn't feel good. Or, it's uncomfortable for me to sit here and I want to move more. I've got a lot of anxious energy. It's like to actually learn to hold our seat is such an important thing for us for the rest of our life. So, we call this thing meditation practice because we're practicing for all these other waking hours. We're practicing changing our relationship to stress. We're practicing waking up the heart and becoming more compassionate. We're practicing learning to be in discomfort so that as we navigate major political upheavals or whatever is coming up, we're actually able to remain grounded. We're actually able to remain open. These are important qualities I think most people would want.
Well, I think I'm ready.
You're sold?
I'm sold. I'm ready, and I love this concept. It's almost like a hashtag, right? Hold your seat. Stay the course. Hold. I guess that's my interpretation, quite literally, and and figuratively. Don't fidget. Don't look at the phone or whatever the case may be. There's a literal interpretation, but I guess there's a figurative one, which is patience, endurance. The journey. Enjoy the journey. Look forward to the journey. The long journey. The longer, the better. The uncertainty becomes exhilarating. What is unexpected? What might I find out along the way? What will occur that will be completely opposite to my worldview? So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to ask you just a couple of things, which is, in order to introduce me or to take all of us through a session, how would you like to do? Would you like me on screen with you, or would you like to hold the screen like that and have me as the voice of God?
Whatever you would like. I think it's fine for us to meditate side by side. Right. And I'm happy to just guide us through it. And so I'll just, my 2-second preamble for us to move into this. The particular technique that we'll do is, what's often known as mindfulness meditation, which is just, being present to what is currently occurring without judgment. Even that is already a lot, right? We often judge ourselves throughout the day. Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. I'm bad at this, or whatever it might be. So you leave judgment at the door. The traditional Sanskrit word would be shamatha. Shamatha could be translated as calm abiding or peaceful abiding meditation. With the idea here being that when we actually drop out of the ways we hold ourselves in stress and anxious thinking, we can tap into a natural reserve of calm and peace. It's there waiting for us. So if even we have one breath along the way where we're like not spazzing out and like pulling our hair out, there we go. We know that we have that within us, and we can develop more of a relationship to it. Okay, so let's do some practice. I'm in a chair, apart. And if anyone is, they say, oh, we're doing the meditation, they plop down on the floor with a pillow, that's great. You can sit with your legs loosely crossed. There's not we don't have to get particularly masochistic in our posture. Something that feels relaxed but uplifted. So just taking the time here to sink down through our sits bones and our legs and our feet. And from this base, we can lift up very gently through the top of the head, almost like there's an invisible string at the top, pulling us straight up, elongating the spine. And from here, we can relax the shoulders, the muscles in the upper back. As for the hands, there's any number of things we can do. We can rest them in the lap, or we can just pick them up at the axis point of our elbows and drop them palms down on the thighs, whatever's most comfortable. And the head rests at the top of the spine with our chin slightly tucked in. Even relaxing the muscles in the face. Particularly around the jaw. If we want, the jaw can hang open slightly. This relieves some of the tension we carry in the face. And even relaxing all these tiny muscles around the eyes. If you would like to close your eyes, you can. If you prefer to meditate with the eyes open, just casting a gaze a few feet ahead of you on the ground, that's also wonderful. Having settled into the body, we at this point just come into the breath, feeling the in-breath and the out-breath as it moves through us. We don't have to change the breath at all in this particular style of meditation. We just notice how we've been breathing all along. And of course, the mind gets distracted. That's what the mind does. It generates thoughts all day long. So it's not like we're turning off the mind, we're just changing our relationship to the thoughts that occur. So when we notice that we've gotten distracted, as you said before, by the past or the future, we can just gently acknowledge it, come back to the breath. And if it's helpful, we could even silently, gently say to ourselves, thinking, just to acknowledge it. Then we return to the soothing and stabilizing influence of the breath. And finally, we can just take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Breathing in I realize this does not make for the most stimulating television imaginable, but hopefully for anyone who's been feeling very stressed out today, this was a good reprieve to just relax into the body. This particular technique, for anyone who wants to continue to explore it, it's so simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. We take an uplifted but relaxed posture. We connect to the breath. When we get distracted, we come back to the breath. That's it. So, it's certainly a challenge. I'd be curious about your experience with it, and whether it's easy, hard. I think for a lot of people, when they get going, they're just so surprised by how many thoughts they even have.
I have to say that the first thing that I noticed, I preferred to close my eyes. First of all, thank you. That was great. I preferred to close my eyes because I didn't want to be distracted. I didn't want to see the screen. I didn't even want to see the blinking lights of the microphone, which are kind of in front of me over there. And then at times I kind of opened my eyes and I allowed myself to stare down and give myself permission to not have to to open my eyes. I found myself not distracted a lot, and when I was thinking about myself. I was thinking of my posture. I was thinking about feeling certain areas of my body. I kept on feeling like a tightness in my neck, but an acute tightness, which is not there now. It almost felt like I could feel something there, and I was thinking to myself, the distraction was my head tilted to the side. It felt like almost my head was I not sitting straight? Was I kind of like felt a little not balanced? And then at another time, I felt like in my hip area, I felt like a tightness, not like a muscle tightness, but it felt like a little hard there for a while. And those were the only thoughts that came into my mind. And I have to say, right at the end, when I opened my eyes and I looked, I saw myself in front of me, the screen, and it almost felt like I was watching my show. It felt like I was looking at someone who wasn't quite me. And that was a weird feel, not weird, but an interesting feeling, that I was looking at that person and feeling like not a disassociation maybe, but just the fact that I was kind of enjoying seeing that person. It didn't seem like it was a reflection. It seemed like an interesting image. And I felt, a tremendous sense, maybe not so much during, but once I opened my eyes and I acclimatized myself, I felt this tremendous sense of, this calmness, I have to say. So those were my feelings.
Those are all excellent and totally valid feelings. Thank you for sharing all of that.
You're like, you're wrong. That's wrong.
You shouldn't feel this way. Exactly. It's very funny. Sometimes when people describe their experiences in meditation, it really feels like 97% of the time, I'm like, yeah, that sounds completely normal. And then there's the 3% of the time, it's like, let's just talk a little bit after. But, this is all very much like, okay, it's this discomfort of learning the new thing. Am I even doing it right? Is my body normal? Am I breathing normally? Is often a very common one. And then into, oh, but wait, there's actually, as you said, a moment of calm. And now, this is why I was, sort of deflecting from Richie's comments earlier, it's like you now have an experience of calm. You know that it's there. You can tap into it. From that moment, it becomes a 24-hour choice. It's like the weirdest game show where it's like, what am I choosing? And I actually talk about this in the book that I'm working on right now around stress, which is, if I turned to you, I said, would you rather choose a sense of calm or a sense of stress? Which would you choose?
Obviously calm.
Right. So this does have mercifully 100% success rate, this particular question. So yes, you would choose calm. So in that moment, you just made a choice between the two. Now, as we meditate, we notice thoughts come up and we're like, oh, I'm going to make the choice not to chase after that stressful thought. I'm going to come back and there's the experience of calm. So we're making that choice over and over again in meditation. The more we do this, and the way what we're practicing for is the rest of our life, the more we're able to then, when we open a new tab and just have us in the background because we also want to look at the election results or whatever, we stop and we say, whoa, I could make a choice here to not stress myself out. Or, we get, a stressful trigger from work that we need to get something done by a certain hour and we're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not having this time. Do we want to hold ourselves in stress or do we want to actually come back to the sense of presence and calm? Like, we're constantly presented with this choice. Yes, stressors will happen, but what we do with our mind after the fact is entirely on us. So that's sort of the interesting thing. Like, now that you've made that choice in a very visceral way, you can keep making that choice as much as you want. You don't need a Lodro Rinzler. You can do it, and that's why I'm also like, so happy to come on shows like yours and talk about meditation and lead practice, because it is simple, but once we exert ourselves, we say, oh, this can be transformative.
It's funny. Tom says, I love the choice, calm or stress. I've known CEOs who think they need to choose stress. So I guess the presence of it indicates I'm doing my job well, that I'm dealing with complex issues. I'm dealing with things that are important.
Yeah. And Tom, you're spot on. I mean, I think I also know people like that, where it's like, if I'm not producing more than my value as a human being is not very much. And it's such an interesting thing. This is, by the way, when I think of these things as resume qualities versus eulogy qualities, that sort of CEO mentality of like, but we've got to do more and we've got to have this many sales from the second quarter and so on and so forth. It's fine. But at the end of our life, what do we want to be known for? How many sales took place in our company in the fourth quarter 2020? Like, it's not what people will be talking about. There's the sense of like, oh, I am, I would want to be known as a kind person at the end of my life. I would like to be known as a loving person at the end of my life. Those are the things that I actually can generate internally at any given day. I don't have to wait for my sales team to come back to me. Not that I have a sales team, but you understand the analogy. And you're right, Tom. You were just saying, that many people confuse stress with challenge. I think it's spot on. We can challenge ourselves. We also challenge ourselves not to produce more, but to just be in line with the qualities that we want to cultivate in our life. And we all fall off. We all make mistakes, most notably me. But I think the more we actually learn from them, the more we start to overall move our life in a slightly different direction that feels meaningful to us.
Well, you clearly are a multiple author, an accomplished author at that, an award-winning author, because that beautiful little soundbite of either a resume quality or a eulogy quality, and that is a conscious choice, almost a binary choice, is just a terrific way to think about. It's a quick hit as well, to be able to take stock, to be able to say, was that, which bucket did that, how did I fill my two buckets today? When you look back, when you introspect or reflect on a day or on how you behaved with a loved one, with a colleague, just in life, with a stranger. Because it's amazing how one of those things, right? A resume quality is all about me. It's all about a selfishness. It's about look at me, I'm the center of the universe. The world revolves around me. Whereas a eulogy quality is what happens when you're not in the center anymore. In fact, you're not even present. And people are talking about you and reflecting on you, your legacy, what you created, and how you impacted and influenced their life.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. And I don't think we give much thought to the eulogy qualities. We don't give much thought about the qualities that we want to cultivate. But for anyone who's like, that's interesting. And I think it was Faith who said that she meditates in the morning in her bed. Right. I think that's great. For me, I often will I always do like a little bit of gratitude meditation, just sort of very informal, by the way, just ask myself, like, what am I grateful for today? And, the wife beside me, or the health of my loved ones, or the roof over my head, or any number of things. But the other one is even just to reflect on intention. Like, what qualities do I want to cultivate today? Because many of us wake up in the morning and we're like, what do I need to do? which is, I get it 100%. Okay, I've got this meeting, and I've got that thing, and I've got to work on this project. Fine. How do I want to show up for it though? That's the big question. Like, what do I want to show up from a place of patience because some of these people, get on my nerves? Do I want to show up from a place of compassion because these people disagree with me? What's the quality I want? And that, we don't know what's going to happen in those meetings. We don't know where things can go sideways, but it's always within our power to actually start to work with our mind and develop those qualities and live a life that we feel very good about.
Well, we're going to, unfortunately and regrettably, have to wrap up soon. And I know your time is very limited, but we're going to try and steal you for about 10 minutes in our Zoom after show. But you've written many books. This is the book that touched Richie, right? The Buddha Walks into a Bar. Tell us a little bit about, give us the I hate to even ask you to do a quick elevator pitch, but give us, from your perspective, what this book is about. Give us a little, if you wouldn't mind, a little sneak preview to the new book as well, or just give us a little tease. And I'll also paste a link to this book in the comment thread below.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. The Buddha Walks into a Bar has these two elements even in the title. There's the traditional Buddhist teachings that actually help us, as we talked about before, get in touch with reality as it is and live from a place of open-heartedness. And then, I wrote this back in my 20s. There's, where I was still going out to bars. I suppose not many of us do that these days anyway, regardless of age. But, that we, go out and we are with friends, we're with family, we have social lives, we have romantic lives. How do those two things meet? And that's always been the interesting point for me. It's like, I've been talking about today, meditation practice is great. It's not a hobby though. It's a practice for the rest of our life. So what does it mean when we want to be more mindful or compassionate at the bar, at the workplace, in our quarantine, on Zoom with friends, whatever our versions of being social and working are these days? Can we integrate these teachings? And similarly, since you asked about the new book, it's not yet available. Unfortunately, I need to work on that. But we're in the final edits of the book called "Take Back Your Mind: Buddhist Advice for Anxious Times." And it's something I just wrote during the quarantine itself because it felt so timely that we are all reaching new levels of anxiety. And I know we were talking a little bit before the show, but there's our personal anxieties and stress. And that sometimes spills over into our interpersonal relationships, our romantic partners, our friends. And then societally, we have, as we talked about before, we have an entire nation glued to computer screens right now, watching the show. No, I'm kidding. Watching the election results, and stressing themselves out, which is, I understand entirely. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but we need to learn how to manage our minds so that we don't hold ourselves in stress. And that's what the new book is about.
Wonderful. Well, when the book is out, consider, I often say, not only is this an open door policy, but I've taken the door off the hinges. So the doorway is yours. Come back anytime and talk about this, and you're always welcome. There is also something that you do, which is the Buddhist meditation immersion. Tell people a little bit about that, and I'll flash up a little URL for people, and also just a bunch of ways of people staying in contact with you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. This is my favorite time of year every year. So in January through June, I run a 5-month program where people can study the entirety of the Buddhist path. And for many people, it's the time that they actually get really serious about their meditation. I always joke that people could disregard all the teachings that come out every week. They could disregard the monthly socials and community gatherings that we do. They could disregard the one-on-one work with me. If they only meditated for the 5 months, they would have a transformed experience and come out kinder and more present and loving. So, all the other things are bonuses for sure and part of the program. But I think, just having the opportunity for a large group of people. Last year, we had 75 people from 10 different countries doing it. And, this year is sort of on track to do something very similar, if not larger. And yet at the same time, I feel so incredibly intimate and so incredibly community-based and wonderful. So I'm a big fan of our group gatherings.
And I'm a big fan of you and yours, and it's been a really calming and uplifting experience to get to know you. Let's quickly go over to our Zoom after show and hang out with a few of the regulars, and hopefully we'll steal as much of your time as possible. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with Wesley Faulkner. Thank you everybody for joining today, and I hope you enjoyed as well our meditation session. I know I did. Thanks again, Lodro.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at CoronaTV.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.